Hi, everybody. Welcome to Cosmic Owl Astrology. I am Louise Edington. I am the Wisdom Weaver. I'm kind of an astro coach in many ways as well. I'm also a shamanic practitioner. And first, before we dive into the weekly forecast starting August the 17th, the Astro Tarot forecast, I just want to say my immense gratitude for all of you that have bought my book, Ceres in Astrology. Some reviews are coming through on Amazon and they are amazing. But I want to forewarn you that Amazon seem to be taking a long time to post submitted reviews. So please either have patience if you've submitted a review, or please also maybe try submitting it again later if you don't get any kind of feedback about why. Apparently they can take up to a week, but I've got 13 and I know a lot more people have done written reviews because I've got emails about it. But anyway, just thank you for submitting the reviews anyway, even if they've not posted yet. You have no control over Amazon. So the other thing is that my one-on-one consultations, as of Sunday evening, I am not going to take any more bookings for the rest of the year. If you want a consultation, you can buy and schedule before the end of Sunday at the current price it is. I'll put the links below, but it's on my website as well, louiseedington.com. And I just need to step back and refocus. I've had this really, really busy year and I'm feeling a little bit burned out. So I'm taking a step back from that and easing off on a couple of other things. I'll be opening the books again in the new year in 2026, but the price will also go up then. So just, no pressure. If you don't want to book one, that's fine. I've got a lot to do, so but I will honor any bookings bought and scheduled by the end of Sunday. You can even buy one and schedule it for 2026. I don't care. That's fine. But I just wanted to give people warning that I'm kind of going to take this break. So, okay, so let's dive into the astrology. But before we do, I just want to show you the cards. And will do the full reading at the end of this video, so stick around. The cards for the week: the Witch of Threads, fire. Then we get the Two of Discs. And then we get the Eight of Cups. And I love this Red Threads Tarot. This is an amazing deck. I also love the Red Seeds Tarot. But if you want it, she is on Etsy UK, Linda Hill. Her name is Linda Hill, and she's in the UK. But these decks are really amazing. She has really studied the myths to create them, and then it's her art and everything. So the books go through the myths, and I just love the decks. Anyway. So let's dive in. I'll share the chart. Where do we start on August the 17th? Well, as we begin the week, we are in the last quarter phase of the moon cycle. I did a video for the next new moon, which is at 0 Virgo, and that's on the 23rd. And so, you can go and watch that whole video because it's got some really powerful aspects. So I'm just going to lay the foundation for the start of the week where we're at. Mercury has moved, is moving faster and faster now, retreading the steps of the recent retrograde. It's kind of well out of that station shadow bit when it moved to 5 degrees from 4. Ceres is retrograde and is still at her station degree. So that's another thing where we're at. But the moon is waning and moving towards that new moon and the sun. So we're kind of in the shedding phase at for most of this week. Other things, should I mention? You can see we've got everything in Aries, which Aries is the sign of kind of I am, is retrograde now. This, if you wondered, is Okiro, which is Chiron and Chariklo's daughter. She's kind of a prophetess, a seer kind of energy. And I added her back in because she is so connected with Eris and Chiron, which have been also moving together pretty much in their retrogrades. But look at all this stuff in Aries that's retrograde right now. We do know that Saturn and Neptune are going to move back into Pisces, and Saturn is now back at 0 degrees. For a while, they were at 1 degree together. Saturn, the faster moving planet, will move back into Pisces first and will go further back into Pisces. So these two are starting to separate a little bit as they move back into their retrograde. But to my mind, this is an awful lot of revisiting, re-looking at, rethinking, kind of it's more about that Aries I am energy going back in, kind of going back over the path we've been through over quite some time. This, we've had a lot of energy in Aries with the Venus star point back in March 22nd at 2 Aries, and Mercury and Venus retrograded from Aries back into Pisces. There's a lot of collective energy about letting go of who we thought we were and what actions we take in the world from this power from paradigm rather than the power over paradigm. Aries is very pioneering. It can be quite assertive, overly assertive, and very driven, but it's also an amazing leader. So we're reflecting on how we are embodying that power from within. If you think of Aries as knowing who you are in your core, then that's what we are reflecting on now. And we're going to be doing that a lot for the rest of this year, which is why I'm taking a break from my consultations. Anyway, so that's where we kind of are at the moment. The nodes by transit are at 18 degrees. As I've mentioned before, I use the true calculation or osculating nodes, and during the eclipse season, which we are really heading into, they stay at the same degree. And it's one of the reasons I kind of like the osculating. I think both ways work. So if you use the mean calculation, the average, that's fine too. I actually don't know where that is at the moment. I do want to point out we're starting this week because those nodes are sitting at 18 degrees with this really powerful water grand trine, which is actually a kite. We seem to be having a lot of kites at the moment, but this is a lot in kind of letting go of that kind of sense of being overly humble and perfectionist as well with the Virgo South node, and moving more into this flowing, bringing in the intuition, bringing in the sense of interconnectedness energy. Venus, and this is Juno and Vesta. So Juno's at 19, Vesta's at 18 degrees. Vesta is the inner flame. Juno is sacred contracts with each other. She also was the goddess for women and children. They've both been traveling together in Scorpio, which is the sign of disempowerment and empowerment. Cancer is the sign of birth and home and spaces of security. So I think, and then the North Node is really kind of what we're being drawn towards more of, that Piscean energy of that sense of interconnectedness, and also connection with source as well, or wave energy of the cosmos, whatever you want to call it. So if I could sum up all of this, because this is kind of where we're at as I record this on Friday the 15th, and we're starting the week ahead with this. It's a big aspect. Jupiter will eventually kind of well, Jupiter's big enough to be part of it as well. This is kind of just saying, step into this more flowing energy, using your intuition as well as your rational kind of brain, right brain, and tune into what is really happening in the world and your emotional body as well. All right, so that's the week ahead. You can see that Uranus and Sedna are traveling together. We start the week with the moon in Gemini as well. My moon, we're very curious moon, very lively moon, activating a lot of the air energy that we are also experiencing. And we've still got a lot of fire and air. If you notice, look at all this chart. You probably may not know. We have very little Earth. All we have in Earth signs are the South Node and Pholus Centaur. None of the main planets that astrologers look at are in Earth signs. This is very ungrounded, and we feel like everything is very shapeshifty and uncertain, but with also a lot of news and new ideas coming in and all those things, because there's a lot of fire and air, and there's all this water energy that I talked about as well. But that's inviting us, I think, to mix this kind of energy of thought and invention and communication and conversation with that intuition. Okay. All right. That was a lot to say for that. So, I go through the moon's aspects day by day on my Substack. So I'm not going to go about them in detail, but I will say that the moon in Gemini on as we start the week, let me have a look at the main moon aspects. The moon will come up and will trine Pallas Athena, the sacred strategic, wise justice warrior in the sign of Aquarius, which she is very connected with that sign. She's very aligned with it because Pallas Athena is the strategist who can pull like pieces together, like mind mapping, and Aquarius is kind of that energy as well. So in Aquarius, she's kind of pulling these pieces from, outer space, if you like. So that's a lovely unbroken flow air aspect. So those ideas. I'm already doing it because I'm creating like this mind map of literally my business. So there you go. But your representation of it might be different. One other main aspect is that Juno, sacred contracts, remember again, I talked about that already, is square to Chariklo, the spinner of grace and space holder. This is holding space for us to create a new story. We're finding all these things are collapsing, the systems are collapsing. All that we thought was true in many ways is collapsing, but we can co-create this new story and pull all these threads together and weave this new story. We each can do it in our individual lives and collectively. Okay. Also, the moon will come up in sextile Ceres. Again, she's still at her retrograde degree. She is revisiting how we nourish our own needs when we realize that really the world does not meet our needs and does not feed us. So Venus on the 17th is up here and will make another unbroken flow trine aspect, water trine, kind of continuing the one that we start in the early days with Centaur Nessus. The buck stops here. Let go of, we're seeing these abuses of power. We're seeing intergenerational abuse patterns now. And Venus in Cancer is saying, come into yourself, into your gut, and understand what you value, and what is your basis, true rooted basis of security, and creating from that space. Okay. Also on the 17th, a bit later in the day, the moon will come up and square those nodes. And so that is really, the moon is really taking us towards that eclipse season. That's the last square before we enter the Virgo new moon, and then we're in eclipse season. It's the last square from Gemini anyway. So always a turning point, shedding, releasing. Remember, we're at that phase anyway. Square to the nodes is another step in that movement. And then the moon will also aspect Chariklo and Nessus, kind of just building up on what I've already said about the other aspects. Okay, right then, on to day. Okay, on to the 18th, Monday the 18th. Mercury over here now moved suddenly like 3 degrees from its station degree, direct degree. Still moving slowly though, so still retracing whatever came up for you and what you were revisiting during the recent retrograde. But Mercury will sextile Mars in Libra. And, this is fire and air, lots of ideas and lots of ideas about what action you are going to start taking to move forward with around what you were creating. And Mars in Libra everything has lots of energies, but Mars in Libra is, it can be a little bit passive aggressive in general, but also Mars in Libra is driven to try to create harmony and balance and to create justice and community. So it works on all those levels. So think about what that means in your life, right? But it's a really potent opportunity aspect, especially if you have things in your chart around 7 degrees. And I have everything. Mercury will actually be square my top of my chart in this, and also square my Venus and Neptune. And here I am taking action to kind of reorganize my business a little bit and where I'm going. Sun. Sun is still in Leo on the 18th and will make an unbroken flow aspect, another trine to Eris, the table turner. And this is quite fiery. And we're in that waning moon again, releasing. I'm going to draw some more lines because some of these aspects are so working together. So, the sun is in its own sign, Leo, the sign of the heart, the sign of love and joy and fun and creative self-expression. And so this is like, what brings me joy? And Eris is saying, if it doesn't bring you joy, shake those tables, do something different. Now, you might notice coming back to the moon. So I'm kind of going to just talk about all of this together. I want to get rid of that Eris thing there. This is Okiroa, the kind of seer prophetess kind of energy in your chart. And this is Chiron, both the wound and the key to healing. All of this is like, what do I do and who am I? This is your identity, this is your heart, and this is your mind. And so fire and air, more creative, more change, more burning some things down and phoenix-like energy. And then we have Hygeia as well. She's going to be aspected as well. And she is holistic healing, and she has a preventative kind of healing kind of energy as well. And in Gemini, I'm going to say you're looking at what communities you're in. You're looking about what your thoughts are. Do you have any kind of stinking thinking? But also how you communicate, your voice, all kinds of things like that. And how maybe you could bring some holistic thoughts into where you're going for the future. Okay. So they're all working together. So I'm not going to go through all those individual aspects, right? So for the rest of the day, I kind of talked about all those aspects together. But one other aspect the moon will make is the sun, sorry, is to something I forgot to put back on the chart. So I'm just going to add one other thing. You know, I have specific asteroids that speak to me. I've started using Black Moon Lilith. I still think is important, particularly in natal charts, but collectively I've started seeing asteroid Lilith as having a real powerful kind of influence in many ways. And she is talked to the hand Lilith, and she is in Aquarius. All these again are retrograde, all these things in Aquarius, the sign of the collective, the sign of the humanitarian, the sign of the people, but also the sign of the future, and so on and so forth. And I think we can start to see people standing up and going, talk to the hand, not on my watch. But it takes a lot of awakening. Well, here's the sun in its own sign, shining its big old light down on asteroid Lilith and saying, no, talk to the hand. We're not going to do that. And she's retrograde, kind of rethinking about how we're going to write this story of where we're going for the future, individually and collectively. So that was the big aspect. Then the moon will move into the sign of Cancer in its own sign and be more kind of emotional, because the moon always goes out of bounds in Cancer. So I will give you a little bit of a heads up about when the moon moves into Cancer. So the moon moves into Cancer at 3:05 p.m. Eastern. Adjust for your time zones. For some of you, it'll be on the next day. I cannot look at everybody's time zones. And so the moon moves into Cancer. It will be out of bounds. And I'm just going to refresh your memory a little bit that we are still really under lunar maximum. The actual lunar maximum was back in March during the Venus retrograde, but we're still, the moon is still going way out of bounds every month, and is gradually getting less and less out of bounds, but it's still going out of bounds. So that means, our basis of security is feeling threatened. Everything feels a little bit like wild card. We don't know what's happening, and that can be quite challenging for the Cancer moon. And it can be, that's where it's important to do your self-care. Self-care, self-care, self-care. Okay, so on the 18th, we'll finish the day. The moon in Cancer now, over here, will come up and start to square Saturn and Neptune. And that's kind of looking at all of this collapse of our systems and the clouds clearing about what's happening in the world. I'm not going to go into any more detail about any of those aspects because, these are the biggest ones. On to the 19th, Tuesday. So you can see on Tuesday, the moon is in Cancer, and the moon comes up into Cancer, hits Sirius, fixed star Sirius, the sun of our sun, which Venus and Jupiter were conjunct back on the 12th, but then will hit Jupiter. So we're really beginning to feel the creative potential of that Venus-Jupiter conjunction. Remember, it was almost like a new moon. It was start of a new cycle for Venus and Jupiter, but it was a big one because it was conjunct fixed star Sirius, which was a really unusual conjunction. Another video on that one in my channel. But it was predicted by the ancient Egyptians. It's so unusual to have the three at the same degree. But it's, I think a lot of people kind of expected it to just be all magical on the day. This is going to emerge. This is what we are pushed towards creating or manifesting in our lives. This is amazing manifestation energy, and true manifestation is bringing mind, body, and spirit in and thinking about what abundance means in every respect in your life. Mind Magic by J.R. Doty, if you really want to dive deep into manifestation. He has a 6-week guided course at the back of his book. So it's in my Amazon store. If you want to buy from my Amazon, I get like a few cents, but you don't worry if you don't. Okay, so as the moon is approaching that, the moon will also square Mars. And so that's pushing us forward to create again this balance and better relationships and so on, or healthier relationships. The sun, meanwhile, will finish the aspects to this collection in Aries that I talked about with a unbroken flow aspect to Chiron. So I'm not going to repeat that one again. I don't think there's many other major aspects. The moon will then, after hitting Jupiter, will come up and square Ceres, still at her retrograde station degree. What nourishes you? What feeds you? How are you going to create a life that meets your needs in a better way when you've discovered that other people and things or the world is not meeting your needs. So the moon will conjunct Jupiter, square Ceres, and then I'm just going to move on. That's about it for that day. The moon will also aspect the nodes as it heads towards the new moon onto the 20th. Okay, Wednesday the 20th. So the moon will hit that kind of energy of that watery grand trine where we started. I'm not going to get it exact, but when it's in a little bit earlier degrees, the moon will make that unbroken flow aspect to Vesta and Juno. And incidentally, Black Moon Lilith, our inner kind of elemental self, keeps bobbing in and joining this party. And this is in that watery, let it go, grand trine to the North Node and Nessus in Pisces. So the moon is going to activate that. You might notice that Vesta and Juno have come to the same degree by now though. And this is kind of they're moving together to help you to move within and to look at your sacred contract with yourself. Self-care, self-care, self-care. Okay, so also on the 19th, I've got to go to this page. Goodness me. Is that it on the 19th? Oh no, it's that page. Sorry, I've got so many pages here. Here it is. The 20th, I mean. Sorry, the 20th, the 20th, the 20th. By the way, Uranus is opposing my Mercury, so if I seem a bit scattered at times, it's a thing. Anyway, on to later on the 20th. I've mentioned all that watery grand trine, the moon conjuncts Venus, so activating all of that. Then the moon will move on and square all of this. So, looking at that identity again, that we are looking at how we move into coming from that power from, realizing that everything starts within you, from fully knowing who you are and knowing you can do your own thing, and then it ripples out into the world. Then the moon will move into Leo. So I'm going to just show you that. So the moon spends just over 2 days in each sign. So 7:16 p.m. Eastern, the moon will enter the sign of the sun. And you can see they're getting closer and closer. We are really in the balsamic phase late on Wednesday. We're really in the shedding and getting ready to plant new seeds for the next lunar cycle and beyond. But Mars over here, still in Libra, will square Pholus, which is cause and effect, Pandora's box energy. One little action can create this ripple effect. It's another look at where perhaps our own actions have created some ripple effect. We'll also see that out in the world with, them, what their actions are creating, but also maybe the collective's past actions, how they've contributed to that. It's kind of got this taking an inventory kind of feel, and taking different action, okay, because of what's been revealed. So the moon over here in Leo will, start trining all of this energy. I'll write more about that in the week, but this is really kind of about what we're letting go of, actions, structures, things like that, old beliefs about ourselves. And we finished the day with the moon just opposing Pluto, and that's taking a deep look at our subconscious, our unconscious, finding our inner gold, and doing away with the shadow, the energy that needs to be got rid of. Okay. 21st. The 21st is, I'm going to try and do chapters for this. I'm going to try and slow down a little bit so I have time to do chapters when I upload videos, but, life's been so busy. But anyway, on the 21st, very early in the day, Vesta and Juno are actually conjunct. So that's that inner flame and that sacred contract with yourself, deep within, to come from this place of empowerment. This got this kind of fertile rebirth energy. Okay. Everything is about intimacy from the inside out, which is, internal family systems language. This is where we are going. We are realizing that the healing or the intimacy and the love and everything comes from the inside out, not relying on or thinking, that it can come from anything else. Nothing else is coming to save you, in other words, kind of thing. Okay, so that's the main aspect. We've still got the moon in Leo. It aspects Mars, so that's fire and air. Again, burning. I think this is burning off, because now we're really close to the new moon. What are we burning off? What do we no longer need? And the moon will then conjunct Mercury, still in the shadow degrees of that retrograde, but that's bringing heart and mind together, or emotions and the right brain, rational brain. Mind and thought, if you like, emotions and thought, bringing it together, going, okay, where are we going? Venus will square Eris, and will start to square this little collection here. And Venus, her new star point from March the 22nd, is an Aries one. If you did my class, you would know that you are working on really finding out who you are, and really, again, coming to that intimacy from the outside out, inside out, and that learning to have that power from, and and learning to lead the way to others, realizing that we are moving into a power from within paradigm, rather than this power over paradigm of control and domination. But Venus will square Eris first. Table shaker, shake things up within yourself and out there after you've shaken yourself up. 22nd, Friday, Venus Day. The moon is still in Leo at the end of the day, and will, finish by aspecting all of these energies in Aries. The early in the day, the moon will trine Ceres and Eris, Shaker and the prophetess, and Chiron, but they're all retrograde, they're revisiting. And this is right, we're really in the new moon phase here, right? So, because it lasts about 3 days. So, back to these asteroids. Vesta, the inner flame of focus, commitment, and devotion, will make this unbroken flow aspect, continuing this water trine. It's still there. We're washing stuff away. We're washing a lot of old beliefs and ideas and emotions away, and saying it doesn't have to hold me anymore. This collective trauma, the moon will then come up and oppose space holder, cosmic doula, and just will activate all the energies that we've talked about. But as I said, we're in this new moon phase, so this will bring, because it's in the sun sign, it will ask you to feel into your heart and say, what in my heart do I know I need to let go of? And then what in my heart do I know I need to set intentions for this new moon that's coming up, because it's a big new moon. And then on, I'm not going to go through all the aspects. Again, if you want to have more on the dailies, follow my Substack. Daily posts are free. Paid subscribers get a call a month and a couple of other things. So Mercury in Leo is just still getting to the end of retracing the retrograde steps. It was 15 Leo that Mercury stationed retrograde at. Will oppose the strategist, the mind mapper, if you like, the puzzle creator, Pallas Athena. So, you may be able to really do some mind mapping and ideas and ecosysteming, whatever you want to call that. Okay. The sun. So it's Leo season ends. You can see it's there. But the sun enters Virgo just a little bit earlier at 4:33 p.m. Eastern on August the 22nd. So it's happy birthday to Virgos. And what a start to your birthday season. So we are going to have the new moon in Virgo and then a new moon solar eclipse at the end of Virgo. So you've got two new moons and one is a partial eclipse. So it's like, whee! But I do want to add Regulus back in. I talk about this in detail on my new moon video, but the new moon and the sun is activating fixed star Regulus. The new moon is at this degree. Okay, so I'll look at that when we get to the 23rd. But first, happy birthday, Virgo. You will feel this as the sun moves into Virgo. And the moon finishes up in Leo by aspecting all of this. This over here, which we started with. It's really hard to keep my mind straight. My mind's like, because of this Uranus opposition to my Mercury. Anyway, late on the 22nd, Venus is really moving fast at the moment, right? She emerged as morning star from her retrograde, and that the middle of that was the 22nd of March, and she's been gradually building up speed. She's whizzing through the signs right now. So this is fast ideas, fast creation, fast energy. That when the speed of the planets does matter, and doesn't everything feel like it's sped up? Yes, Mercury's slow. Oh no, look, it's moving fast now. By the end of this week, by Friday. So mind and values and relationship, heart energy is going to start whizzing forward as well. So. But Venus, now moving fast, will square off to all of this as well, and will kind of say, I'm trying. It's time to start sowing those seeds as we go into this new moon, and then we have the new moon. The new moon is actually very early on the 23rd, all times Eastern. Adjust for your own time zone. Okay. So August the 23rd, 2:06 a.m. Eastern. So for me, it's actually just right after midnight Pacific time. It's actually late on the 22nd. Hawaii, you will be late on the 22nd too. Some other places can't do all the time zones. Again, I want you to go and look at my whole video for the new moon if you want detailed forecast. But I just want to point out that this is a big focal point. It's a focal point of a major finger of God. And it's conjunct Regulus. It's the first new moon conjunct Regulus, fixed star Regulus, since from our perspective, because of precession, Regulus moved into Virgo back at the end of 2011, right before all that 2012 kind of big shift. And after 2,160 years in the sign of Leo, we are moving into this time of sacred service. But it takes a while for us to realize that. There's a lot to let go of first. But if you want to harness these energies, this is about what is my right work in the world, what is my sacred service in the world, but also how can I become whole, Virgo, whole unto myself, to come from that place. All right. I'm not going to keep going on about this new moon because, there's a lot. And so the moon then activates all of these planets that are at the beginning of signs, and the sun will follow. It keeps, we're in this massive shift of time. And I do think, consciousness rather, sorry. I do actually think that, this eclipse season is going to start hurtling us into this big shift of consciousness that will peak next year. We've been moving towards it. I know you go, well, I've heard this before. Well, it's all a process, right? It's like a process of realization and growth, and suddenly I see kind of energy over and over. I just added Haumea because she's involved too, because that's a lovely sextile. But this new moon is going to activate all of these slower moving big shift agents, and we are really going to look at, like, what is our role, alpha, omega, new beginnings. How do we move into, I'm going to call it sacred service really, but it's coming from that place of wholeness. Okay, Virgo, one is who is whole unto themselves. True meaning of the word virgin, by the way, if you weren't aware. Later on the 23rd, Jupiter is going to square off to Ceres. It's kind of continuing that big conjunction of Venus, Jupiter, and Sirius back on the 12th, and it's looking at how we nurture our own needs and co-create this new world again. We keep looking at these same themes again, right? And then on to the 24th. No, we're moving into the next day, but I will just quickly say that, for the start of next week, the sun follows the moon in activating all these big agents of change that is really on the new moon. This is pushing us towards this, taking this big leap. 0 is the, I'll put my own hand up. 0 degrees is the alpha, the omega, infinite potential, containing everything and nothing. And it's the Fool card in the tarot, which is kind of taking a leap off a cliff and going, take a risk. I can do this. All right. So you could set your intentions on that new moon to really think about how you are going to bring all that's happened, all that we have been moving towards, and bringing it into whatever sacred service means for you. And that can mean a million things, right? it's kind of more into that priestess energy. I'm going to kind of, be whole unto myself, and then I am going to serve the world in some way. And it takes a village to do it. My right work in the world. And it doesn't have to be paid work. You're just saying, some people are kind of meant to have jobs and then kind of serving, maybe that's part of their sacred service. It's not always about, or volunteer work or whatever. It could be about that too. Just saying. All right, Witch of Threads. I'm going to go and look at all the cards, but please do not forget to subscribe. Leave me a comment, leave me a thumbs up. I try and read all the comments at least and answer if there's questions. But to sum up, this week really is a week of release. It really is, because more and more we are kind of, it's heading towards this big new moon, then it's eclipse season, and all the aspects on the way are really releasing any idea of a savior coming to save us, or that, of who we thought we were in the past, letting go of a lot of old stuff. Okay. So, the Witch of Threads. There are several Witch of Threads in this deck, which is kind of interesting. So, Witch of Threads, Crete. I am wise. This is your red thread of myths. And I find that really interesting because I've been called a lot to explore pre-Hellenic myths. This is my current read. Because before, the patriarchy came in and wrote their version of the myths, there were other versions of these myths, because myths are stories of archetypes that help us to understand humans. And I don't know if it was like deliberate. I don't think it was. It was written from their perspective, and we were moving into this patriarchal age. The myths were rewritten from a very patriarchal perspective. For example, the myth of Demeter, Persephone, and Hades, the original myth, there was no rape. It was very different. So, but anyway, also though, I think the red thread of myths is the myths we've told ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, and who we are in the world, and about the world, about us. And this is your Witch of Threads. And this is I am wise. This is the Crete Witch of Threads, according to this deck. And I want to read you a couple of quotes. So one is eye of newt, toe of frog, wool of bat, and tongue of dog, adder's fork and blindworm's sting, lizard's leg and owlet's wing. For a charm of powerful trouble, like a half broth, boil and bubble, double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn, and cauldron bubble. That's William Shakespeare, if you don't recognize it. I'll read the interpretation in a minute, but I've got a couple of other great quotes in her book. For all you know, a witch may be living next door to you right now. Roald Dahl. And we have all got both light and dark inside us. What matters is the part we choose to act on. That's J.K. Rowling, but anyway, the less said about that, the better. But Virgo, in its own way, has got this witch energy, and also that Scorpio energy that's very potent this week, and the Virgo New Moon. And Virgo is also the energy of like plant medicine and healing and holistic healing and so on. So it's like time to release your inner witch for this week, your inner witch wisdom, your inner knowing. But let me read the interpretation in the book. This ancient crone holds a strong ancient feminine energy. She is much older than anyone would think. Some might be wary of her as they find her untamed soul too much to handle, but such feelings arise only from misplaced fears and misunderstandings. She relies on intuition and encourages you to do so um, as well. A visceral energy of fire emanates from the depth of her being, and you can feel the heat when you are near her. Her knowledge holds unknowable wisdom that draws us in to listen. If you know her, you will know of her generosity, her inspiration, and the encouragement she offers you to make your dreams come true. Her imagination is vast, packed with myths and stories that she is always happy to speak of if you ask. She holds the power of healing and will tell you of the healing plants and herbs that can be found in the natural world. She will also teach you of darkness and light and how they are the same. If you ask, she will walk with you through the labyrinth. So call on this Witch of Threads within you this week. Quite powerful. Okay. That's kind of the overall message of the week in many ways, to be quite honest. And then we also have the Two of Discs, and twos are often decisions, but the words for this card in this deck are I am holding on. It's and the quote from Louise van France is, if we can stay with the tension of opposites long enough, sustain it, be true to it, we can sometimes become vessels within which the divine opposites come together and give birth to a new reality. This is kind of repeating everything I said about the astrology, and I always love how the cards do that, right? Lastly, the last card. Remember, I said it's going to be quite an emotional week, particularly those days when the moon is in Cancer. This is, and I think this was one of the themes of last week as well, but it's also the theme of a waning moon, moving towards a new moon. Letting go. Letting go. I'm going to read just the interpretation here, not the quotes. So, something as deep as the ocean is changing the waves in your life. Remember, we've got that water grand trying washing things away. You might have been telling yourself for a while that you needed to find a fresh start. Perhaps you may have made a pact to stay somewhere or be with someone even though it wasn't making you happy and whole. You might see all of this as a failure, but it isn't. It is all part of your process and your journey. Have you been holding on? If so, know there are aspects of your life that are not likely to move forward with you. There is loss and reality here, for whatever you are leaving behind is a finality. This may be challenging and exhausting, for letting go is really hard and difficult, and a difficult process that may bring you sorrow, tears, and grief. And remember, Ceres is very related to that too, and she's still at her station retrograde degree. You may be tired, you may be hurt, but your heart and yourself will support you to meet the changes. It is time to wipe away any guilt you are carrying and walk forward to greet what is opening up for you. You have courageously reached an awakening. There is so much more to you than what you already know. Deep breath. It's time to move on. Wow. Okay. I'm going to leave it there. But again, please leave me reviews if you haven't on Amazon already, and know that they might not show up right away. And please leave me a comment, a thumbs up, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And my love to you. We're kind of birthing. This is amazing time to be alive, and I know it's challenging as well. So self-care, self-care, self-care. Come whole into yourself and know that you have all within you that you need to move forward if you work with it. Love you. Much love.